Hey birdwatchers, come join me for a sunset stroll at Nudgee Beach. Just 30 minutes drive from Brisbane CBD. We'll explore the foreshore, the boardwalk, and a few hidden spots. Plus we'll learn a bit about how bird behaviour changes as the night approaches. The golden hour doesn't last forever, so let's go find those birds. We're starting our adventure at the northwestern car park of Nudgee Beach Reserve. The first stop is the foreshore park. There's already plenty of birds to spot. Not too high up, we have the galah. This one's getting ready to meet its friends. It's cleaning itself up. Galahs often rub against branches to reach tricky spots, scratch itches, and spread oils that keep their feathers in good shape. One of Australia's largest honey-eaters, the blue-faced honey-eater. They're famous for waking everyone up at the dawn chorus, but they're just as noisy at dusk. As the daylight starts to dip, birds like the sulphur-crested cockatoo start unleashing loud and often strange calls. All that noise helps them regroup before nightfall, when dozens, sometimes hundreds, will converge on a single tree to spend the night. This grouping together to rest is known as roosting. It provides safety in numbers. Sunrise and sunset are prime times for birdwatching. Photographers call this the golden hour. The warm light makes everything look cinematic. Bird activity also spikes as they hunt for their final feed before dark. Right now we're under the early golden skies, but stick around as the colours will deepen into rich reds and then into the moody pinks and blues of twilight. This beach is famous for its nesting rainbow bee-eaters. They dig their nest tunnels straight into the sand. If you do see one diving into a burrow, please keep your distance. There might be other nest tunnels close by, and getting too close could collapse the tunnels and trap the birds inside. Birds have different sleeping preferences. Doves, like the bar-shouldered, like to find a place in dense foliage, to rest either alone or in pairs, and sometimes in small groups. Up here we've got two Brahminy kites. They have super sharp eyesight for hunting, but their eyes need bright sunlight to work. After sunset they quickly lose their visual edge and are forced to clock off for the rest of the day. Rainbow lorikeets, like cockatoos, gather in huge groups at night. Sometimes thousands get together, making a lot of noise. Breeding couples will skip the crowd and sleep right in or near their own nest hollow. Nudgee Beach might look small on the map, but its birding is spread across multiple hotspots. Over 100 species are regularly reported here, from resident coastal birds like heron and osprey to thousands of international migratory shorebirds. This next bird isn't international though. It's an Aussie icon, the laughing kookaburra. This one keeps smashing its beak into the dirt, probably trying to grab a juicy grub hiding underground. Next up is the magpie lark, also known as the mudlark, because they build their nests out of mud. Speaking of nests, did you know the nest is not actually the bird's permanent home? The cartoons were wrong. Most bird species will only ever sleep in the nest while incubating their eggs. The rest of the year, they bed down on a random branch or in a shrub. And this one here is the willy wagtail. Here's the adaptable Australian white ibis. That bill is naturally used for probing mud to find food. However, they also use it to drink and clean themselves in surprisingly clever ways. Okay, that was a quick lap around the foreshore park. Let's head back to where we started. On the way, we're going to have a quick peek at this mudflat. If you're coming here to see the shorebirds, the best time is mid-tide, especially as the water's coming in. This brings those birds closer to the shore, instead of far out on the mudflats. Off in the distance, we have a group of shorebirds. These are sharp-tailed sandpipers. A name that doesn't actually give us any useful information to identify them. If you want to improve your shorebird identification skills, check out the simple guide in the video notes. Okay, that was a tricky one. Here's a much easier one to ID. A black cap with a bright red bill means it's a Caspian tern. This is the white-faced heron, searching for small aquatic animals like prawns, crabs, fish, and insects. Okay, time to head over to the west side of the reserve to check out the mangrove boardwalk. I had an interesting moment here a few weeks ago. I arrived early one morning to get sound recordings of shorebirds for the Merlin Sound ID project. So I was out on the mudflats and kept hearing this strange sound about 200 metres back on land in the mangroves. Sounded like a cow or something. I decided to ignore it and kept recording the birds. Then the noise started getting louder and more frequent. I looked back thinking, what is that? I did a quick scan with my binoculars, and through an opening, literally in the mangroves, there was a couple. And let's just say that they weren't birdwatching. I quickly turned away because I thought, that might not look too good. Suffice it to say, it was a bit uncomfortable editing out those extra vocalizations in the recordings afterwards. Anyway, I'm gonna keep this video family friendly, so let's leave the mammals behind and get right back to the birds. There's a bird hide just ahead. Let's see what we can find. Wow, the sun is turning everything red now. Here's a silver gull. They're not fussy sleepers. They'll happily bed down on beaches, mudflats, floating vegetation, and even human-made structures like jetties and rooftops. Nearby is the Australian pelican. These birds are huge. Even with a 2.5 metre wingspan, they only weigh about 6 kilograms, which is about the same weight as a medium-sized watermelon. Their relatively lightweight bodies let them ride up on warm air currents, soaring up to 3 kilometres high. This allows them to cover vast distances in a single flight. The boardwalk track is a flat, easy, and almost a complete circuit. It takes about an hour at a birdwatching pace. The surrounding bushy habitat is absolutely packed with bird life, and mangrove specialists like the mangrove honeyeater that's singing right now. If you're lucky, you might even spot a shining flycatcher. They're appearing a lot more often these days. Wait, we've got a bird up here. While these birds are fierce daytime predators, pied butcherbirds are famous for their hauntingly beautiful nocturnal singing, especially during the breeding season on moonlit nights. You'll get to learn how the moon affects birds in a future video. Little corellas are another bird that love to roost in massive groups. To keep their continuously growing bills in shape, they chew and tear at bark, sometimes stripping entire trees bare. The Tahitian kingfisher is best identified by its massive heavy bill. It uses that powerful beak to smash crabs against tree roots before swallowing them whole. This bill is also used as a demolition tool. To build a nest, a pair will literally fly face first into rock-hard termite mounds. They'll repeatedly strike the surface until they've chipped out a tunnel for their eggs. Keep in mind that there's an off-leash dog park nearby. The signs aren't very clear, so you might see dogs roaming around free here. Dogs are welcome in the park and on the boardwalk, but they should be on a leash. This is especially important on the mudflats. We don't want to scare away the migratory shorebirds that rely on this place to rest and feed. We've reached the Nudgee Creek lookout. I often find some good birds hidden right along the bank. This is a great egret. They normally roost in large communal flocks. so this lone hunter is likely having a quick rest before heading home for the night. Whoa, some big birds are soaring across from the other side of the creek. This is unexpected. Blackneck storks are usually not seen this close to the coast, though they are occasionally seen at Kedronbrook wetlands not far from here. This species prefers freshwater wetlands because the shallow, calm waters are filled with their favourite foods, such as frogs, eels and fish. Once you reach the end of the boardwalk, you've got a choice. Heading straight and to the right takes you down to a canoe ramp, which is always worth checking for birds. To complete the circuit though, we're going left to follow the main track. And hear that yapping sound? This one is by itself, but its family flock won't be far. To stay warm at night, white-breasted wood swallows pack tightly shoulder to shoulder, forming long rows. This is a small group, but larger flocks can take up whole branches and even an entire tree. In the next tree, there's a noisy firebird, though it's been unusually quiet at the moment. It seems the theme of this evening is ironically quiet, noisy birds. Even this noisy miner is finally winding down for the night. Red-browed finches don't typically hang out by the beach, but they'll still venture down if there's seeding grasses around. We'll keep moving down the path. Fun fact, the name Nudgee comes from the local indigenous language meaning place of ducks. Haven't seen any yet, but we've still got time. This is where the track ends, but turning left, you can follow the quiet road back to the car park. Now let's jump straight to our next spot. On your drive into Nudgee Beach, you'll pass a few car parks and boat ramps on the right. They're hidden hotspots where you might find birds of prey, kingfishers, or even a shorebird or two. Many waders, including the black-fronted dotterel, stay active until well after twilight. When it's time to rest, they simply curl up and flatten against the open ground. This works perfectly because their sandy brown backs provide camouflage. From above, an aerial predator sees nothing but stones and sand. Meet the pied stilt, yapping away as they love to do. This one is sounding more urgent than usual because look at this. Its chicks are trying to make a break for it. They'll keep their fuzzy camouflage feathers for a few weeks before they start growing into their immature or teenage plumage. Have a listen to this. These are pied oyster catchers. Like most shorebirds, their schedule isn't dictated by the sun. It's driven entirely by the tide and the moon. When the high tide floods the mudflats, they head to high ground to rest. They don't care whether it's day or night. The second that tide drops, they'll head straight back out there for feeding. Let's head back to the foreshore mudflats and see what else we can spot before the night sets in. Okay, I've got my boots on, and we're now deep into blue twilight. These mudflats aren't just a scenic stop, they're a vital sanctuary for shorebirds. Bar-tailed godwits are the ultimate champions of migration. They fly non-stop from Alaska to Australia, flapping for 11 days straight. Exactly how they sleep is a mystery, though scientists suspect that they take brief micro-naps during the flight. When they finally land, they need days of deep sleep and weeks of feeding just to recover. The Pacific golden plover also treks to the Arctic, but instead of flying non-stop, they'll travel in shorter legs, stopping at wetlands across Asia to rest and refuel. A long down-curved bill and a dark cap tells us this is a Eurasian whimbrel. The sun is almost gone, but I've got a few more birds to show you. Thank you for joining me for sunset birdwatching. If you enjoyed this walk, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Now let's see who's still awake. Many birds are still foraging even though we'd expect them to be asleep. These specific black ducks are wide awake and work in the night shift. Their bills are incredibly sensitive to touch, allowing them to happily sift for food in the dark without needing to see what they're doing. But while the ducks rely on touch, the Nanking night heron is built for hunting after dark. Their large, light-sensitive eyes give them a huge advantage under low light, when fish, frogs and insects are less alert. Look who we have here. 2 beachstone curlews walking around in the dark. Much like their distant cousins, the bushstone curlew, they love to call out to each other at night. Sometimes groups of them even gather together for eerie moonlight concerts, where they call out into the darkness for reasons only they can understand. And here's one more Australian white ibis. We've reached the end of our time at Nudgee Beach. Happy bird watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.